All sports have rules, but in Formula E, it's not as simple as spotting a foul and blowing the whistle. Regulations govern everything from car design to driving standards to how much money the teams are allowed to spend. So who's responsible for keeping all of that in check, and how do they do it? The FIA, or Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, is the organisation that governs the most prominent international motorsports in the world, including Formula E. As well as contributing massively to the foundation of the championship, the FIA makes and enforces the rules, but it's not as simple as it sounds. Everything from certifying racetracks to deciding where certain branding goes on the cars is the responsibility of the FIA, as Formula E director Frédéric Bertrand explains.
As FIA, we have different roles in this championship. We are working together with Formula E on understanding how the product should look like, what is the level of expectation from the fans, same on the TV side, same on the spectator side, same on the sponsorship side, so that we understand well what is the expectation from the product of Formula E. And then we try to bring that home and bring that into the FIA, discuss with the different services, technical, sporting, safety, financial, and we try to develop the regulation which are able to deliver the product which is expected. It means for sporting, thinking on how the format would be the best to deliver the best possible show, how we make that format feasible, how we make that format policeable, and how we make that format being effective for TV. It's the same on the technical side, where we create a regulation to say how the car will look like in the future. Should it be battery side? Should it be effectiveness of powertrain? Should it be technologies we have to put inside those cars in terms of softwares? And once this is done, we create a regulation, how the teams will develop the cars, and then we create the way to control that everyone is fulfilling the regulation and following the regulation 100%. And this type of approach we also have on the track, creating the track together with Formula E. This means checking that the safety will be respected, that we are delivering tracks which are proper for racing. And the last part is the new one. I would say on the financial side, we agreed together with Formula E that it was good for the future of the championship to give a proper visibility on how much it costs to participate to this championship and how we control that those costs are not exploding. And for that reason, we created what we call now the financial regulation. And this is the last part of the job we have, is to regulate and check that people will follow up those regulations.
So the FIA has a lot of plates to spin, but with tweaks to the rules happening every season and an exciting new qualifying format that debuted earlier this year, how do they decide which sporting regulations need to be changed? Overseeing it all is Head of Sporting Matters, Pablo Martino.
It basically starts first with ideas, as all the good things in life. They start with ideas in a paper, and then all these ideas has to be developed. We have a working group that is called the Sporting Working Group, with representatives of the teams, representatives of manufacturers, as well as the promoter, and as well from the FIA, from the technical department, safety department, the stewards, the race director of the championship. And we were all together in order to make an idea. It's reflected in a text of regulations. One of the most difficult things we face when we do this process of understanding and trying to replicate an idea into the regulations is to try to understand where all the loopholes or where all the problematics will be. Just taking some examples, as we did last year, we had 3 months work just to set up the regulatory text for the qualifying, the new format. It takes quite a long time just to identify all the different possibilities and procedures we need to follow. Some of them, they require some testing, some others don't. With the qualifying format, it needs some test, and we even perform a test in the collective test in Valencia that worked really pretty well for both for teams, but also for us. After that test, we made some slight adjustments to the final text. The rulebook is known by all the competitors, and it doesn't change over the season. So everybody knows before starting the season what will be the rules applied that year. These sporting working groups are continually reviewing the regulations, and any kind of new proposal is presented to the Formula E committee, who at the end of the day finally validates that changes, and internally in the FIA it's escalated to the World Motorsport Council for a final validation.
Alongside the sporting regulations, the technical regulations are designed to ensure a fair and level playing field for the teams by making sure all the cars comply to specific criteria. Alongside a team of dedicated scrutineers, technical manager Alessandra Cilaberti is in charge of making sure no one is making any untoward alterations behind the scenes that might give them an unfair advantage on the track.
One of the key roles we have is to develop a set of technical regulations. These regulations are by nature mandatory and will apply to all cars competing in the championship. And the way they come is in form of a document which is published in the FIA website, where a set of car components, specifications and characteristics are laid down, and with which compliance is mandatory. The key role of a scrutineer is to help us making sure all the cars are complying with the technical regulations. So they will be checking the compliance from a mechanical and electrical state and help us ensure safety and fair play. Experience in motorsport is a clear advantage, as well as a background in engineering or any similar technical field. But then I guess the bottom line is to be passionate about motorsport, know about the cars, have a basic knowledge of how the cars work. The rest of the experience can be built up while working and training on site. Technical checks can be performed at all times during competition. For example, when the car is just within the garage, or when all the cars are standing in the grid before the start of the race, or when they come in the FIA garage after a session. We can perform all kinds of checks, whether it's checking the mechanical state and compliance of car components, or if it's whether it's about electrical safety compliance. We can do dimension checks. We can do checks on bodywork parts to ensure they respect the single supplied regulations. All this can be performed at any time during the competition to ensure compliance. So the weight bridge is essentially a platform resting on 4 load cells for each of the 4 sides of the car, and a car would basically drive onto it, and then we can double check that the minimum car weight according to the FIA technical regulations is respected. Usually by default all the cars going at the top of the quali, and the top 3 cars after the race will be checked, but then we can perform random checks with all other cars as required. If there's a technical infringement, we would inform race control, our sporting colleagues, and then based on the evidence, we will compile a factual report that describes the non-compliance with the technical regulations, and then the report will be sent to the stewards, and they will further assess and take any actions if required.
So with the regulations agreed, the cars hit the track. But when the rubber hits the road, who's keeping everyone in check? That massive job falls to Scott Elkins, the race director, and the team in race control.
The race director is kind of the person in charge whenever the cars are on the course. So anytime during practice, qualifying, the race, anytime the cars are on the track, then it's kind of all my fault. We kind of take care of everything in race control from a safety standpoint, from a recovery standpoint, and we work with what's called event operations in case anything happens outside the track where we have to modify something on the track.
Did you see that? Did you see him defending? Just drove me into the wall.
It's very, very clear. The International Sporting Code has an appendix that specifies the code of conduct for drivers. We expect all drivers to read that and know it, but we also accept the fact that they probably don't. So we have to manage that from race control, which is why we have a race director and why we have stewards who help make decisions when the drivers don't do what's expected.
I mean, what is this guy doing?
So the process when something happens, whether it's unsportsmanlike or even an incident with 2 cars come together, the way it works is what we do is we look at it in race control. We have a lot of different technology, a lot of different pieces of software where we can go in, replay an incident, take a look at it, verify the car numbers, make sure we know who was involved. And then we take a look at it from a standpoint of where I kind of use a filter. And depending on what we think in race control, we'll pass it on to the stewards, put it under investigation, and we post that so everybody knows what's going on. And then the stewards can take a little bit longer time and look at it and try to determine whether someone was or wasn't at fault and if a penalty needs to be issued.
What the?
What a f***ing... Yep, copy.
What we typically have is we have what we call, even within the FIA, we have a toolbox. And so all race directors have in their toolbox a set of tools. One of those is neutralization, which in Formula E we have a full course yellow and a safety car, which allows us to basically slow down time and give us the opportunity to recover a car or do something that we need to do otherwise. And then what we can do is we go back obviously to green flag racing. And then we have other tools as well, actual physical tools that we can use within race control, which is we have between 20 and 26 CCTV cameras where we can watch the action. We have the ability to speak directly to the drivers via radio or the team managers.
Sam, this is race control.
Yep, copy.
Man, are you okay if I leave you there for about another minute and a half and I tell everybody that you're there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
We have the ability to replay all of those 26 cameras. We also have direct communication with the teams via an instant message system. So there's a lot of different ways that we can utilize the tools that we have to help manage the race.
All the cars in this championship are equipped with a telemetry system, enabling us to gather comprehensive data live during a race or any session. And that, together with live data analysis, is enabling us in a technical garage to spot a technical infringement.
Jean-Eric Vergne, drive-through penalty for technical infringement.
Oh, race leader! Drive-through penalty! Da Costa sends him the dummy. Oh dear.
Yeah, come on.
Lotterer just pushed me into the wall.
It has to be enforced every race. Competitors has to respect 100% the rules. If there is any infringement, there is a reporting either from the technical delegates or from the race director that this is centralized by the stewards, that at the end of the day they are the referees deciding the penalties or not on that potential infringement.
So now we know who makes the rules and how infringements are spotted, but how are they enforced? Who decides who's to blame and what the punishment should be? That would be the stewarding team, led by chairman of the stewards, Achim Loff.
If you have a competition, you need to have rules, and if you have rules, you need people taking sure that they are respected. We are always 3 stewards. One is the chairman, 2 appointed guys from FIA, and normally we have the 3rd guy from the country where we are. We have the luck that we have permanent stewards here in Formula E. That helps a lot to stay consistent. We are very well equipped thanks to FIA. We have a driver advisor, which is a former professional pilot, so he can help us with a point of view from a professional, from a driver's side. Then we have all the track cameras, we have live TV, we have the onboard cameras, we have live telemetry, so that helps us a lot to take the right decisions. All kinds of violations of the regulations are coming to us, so it's a huge range. Sometimes it's very easy if you have a technical infringement, it's black or white. For example, if the car is too light, that's a typical one, or if it used too much power. We have our technical scrutineers, they are the experts, they are engineers, they are able to judge that, and we get that reported from them, and that makes it very easy for us.
What a
Copy.
Okay, I think you saw what happened.
Yeah, I saw this one.
We try to be consistent in the way we do the judgments, but it's sometimes hard to be fair and consistent too. We try to do the best way we can with all the help we have.
Okay, Nick, we've got a drive-through penalty for overpower on region. Let's take it now. Box, drive through, watch your pit speed.
We have a wide range of punishments. The normal things are a time penalty or a fine or in the hardest way, disqualification. If we are 100% sure that we have all the necessary things to judge it, we do that in the race. But if we need to make a hearing with the drivers or with involved drivers, if we are not 100% sure, we will do that after the race.
He pushed me off completely.
Yeah, I saw that.
65.0.
It's difficult. On one hand, we have the philosophy, let them race. On the other hand, we can't let it go to a crowd. We try to get it on the right move.
Roland is f***ing nuts. This move was not fair.
Already reported.
Balancing that is one of the key points of stewarding. It's important to mention that the stewards are volunteers. We are not paid by FIA, so we are fully independent. I never had the momentum where I feel influence from FIA. We try to do the right decision based on the evidences.
Ok Seb, on a drive-through penalty over speed under full course yellow.
Please, race director, just tell me, I have to do it or not?
Yeah, so again, we use our technology to issue penalties and to inform everyone about what happens if there is a penalty. So the stewards will make their decision. We have an intercom system where I talk to them directly. They'll call me on the intercom and then we'll post it in various places where everyone can see it. It even goes out on the television broadcast. It's the team's responsibility to then inform the driver of the penalty and if he needs to serve it now or if it's something that happens later. So yeah, it's kind of on them. We post it and then they must respond. And they have a period of time where they have to respond or we take further action.
Okay, we have the drive-through, Andre, we have the drive-through, so drive-through now, drive-through now.
What? For what? For what, sorry? He's come from behind.
We can't argue now, Andre, we just have the penalty, so...
I know!
If there's one thing we know about racing drivers, it's that they hate losing. More often than not, a penalty can mean losing positions, points, and sometimes a podium or race win. So when they're told the bad news, how do they keep their emotions in check and stay motivated to salvage the best from a bad situation?
Absolutely. There's been many times where I've thought, oh, I've got away with something there, that's good, I've got away with it. Lady Luck's on my side. But all the drivers will say the same thing. There'll be times where they think they've been harshly dealt with. There'll be times where they're like, shh, don't say anything, it's all right. I haven't had anything done to me yet.
Well, I think receiving a penalty in races, if you've done something already wrong, you're kind of expecting it. So when it comes, you're hoping the severity is not as bad as you would hope. On the other hand, you sometimes get a penalty for technical stuff, especially in Formula E with powers and stuff like that. So that can often be a surprise and pretty frustrating.
We have drive-through for power overuse, nothing you can do. You need to do drive-through.
You're kidding.
You know, there's some penalties that you kind of feel like they might be coming if you've made a big error.
Now into the pits comes Bird! And he's missed his way in!
There's other penalties that you feel like you might get away with, and there's some other penalties where you really didn't know that you were going to get one at all.
I guess as soon as you have a penalty, you decide that you want to look to see how you can recover from that. Should it be a drive-through, maybe you're going to save some energy and hope for a safety car later on. Should it be a time penalty, you have to obviously try and create a gap between you and the cars behind. So yeah, it's constantly just dealing with whatever you have in that particular situation and trying to make the best of it, I guess.
There's places where if you get a drive-through penalty, the race will be absolutely ruined. There's other places where it might still be a salvageable race. You just have to keep your head down, keep focused, and do the best job you can. You just have to remain professional.
Okay, mate, eyes forward, you know the gig, nice and smooth.
It will ignite a fire within you that you may not have had during the race. You were still driving well, but it will ignite a fire and take you to a slightly different place. And it depends on the driver and their charisma, their personality, where that fire will take you. It might take you to a place where it extracts another couple of tenths out of you and you start to push and you move forwards and it's what you needed to get your race going. Or it can take you the other way. You can become erratic, overdrive and then make more mistakes. So yeah, one way or the other.
In last year, I think in Rome, when I made contact with Cassidy at the time, I was thinking it wasn't that bad, he kind of turned in, but upon reflection, I kind of realised that I was a little bit optimistic.
I was fully at the inside and he just closed the gap. Are you f***ing real, man?
Depends who you hit, but sometimes, you know, if you hit the wrong guys, they're fans on Twitter or something, there'll be a few videos to watch back. I think when I hit Stoffel in London, I was probably the most unpopular man in Belgium at the time, but yeah.
I'm so sorry to Stoffel.
I wouldn't want to be a steward. I wouldn't want to be the officials. It's a difficult job. You know, we're always going to have an answer. We're always going to have an opinion, and we always think that we're right as racing drivers. The most painful penalty was actually a fully justified one. Basically, it was the 50th race of Formula E in Hong Kong. I had an amazing race with Andre Lotterer for the win. Unfortunately, on the penultimate lap, I hit his rear right wheel and caused him to have a puncture. I won the race and then I got the win taken away. So that was difficult, but it was justified. And you know, at the time I was gutted for Andre, and standing up on the podium was not a nice feeling.
And Degrassi's now been given a black flag. That is, your race is run, you're coming into the pits, you were meant to serve your drive-through penalty, you have not.
If you don't comply with the penalty, it's quite simple. You get excluded, disqualified, or if you as a driver continue to drive around and not abide by the penalty, then you get a black flag. I have been black flagged in a charity karting event, but because you could pay, you could actually physically pay for people to get black flags to come in, just to raise more awareness and money for charity. So I was on pole position and leading this race, and after 2 laps, I got a black flag. Then the next lap I got another black, and the people just kept on paying money to see me come in the pits and have a laugh. So.
Rules and regulation is a huge topic, but hopefully we've given you an insight into how it all works behind the scenes in Formula E. It's a massive job, and the FIA does terrific work to make our series safe and fair without sacrificing the racing spectacle. Which aspect of Formula E would you like us to delve into next? Let us know in the comments below, and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss a thing.